But hello and welcome to Cricket Commentaries. As always, my name is Jack Mastro, and as always, I'm joined by my very good friend and co-host Keaton Byer. Hello, Keaton.
Hello, how are you today?
Uh, not that excited to talk more about this movie.
Oh, what? No. No way. You're not excited to talk for another hour and a half about this excellent movie? I don't understand how that could be the case based on your
my reaction to the last episode.
your endorsement of it last week.
Yeah, I definitely was very positive on this movie, 100%.
I mean, you weren't overly negative, but
No. In contrast to you.
In contrast, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Amadeus is the movie we're talking about, 1984. Last week we kind of just went over our initial thoughts, basic facts, as we just discussed. Our initial thoughts
Did the
were
summary and all that, and
talked
talked a little bit about how this movie came about.
exactly the stage production. There were a few things that we kind of left in question,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in just 1 second. But before we get to that, I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you like Mozart's operas? Is that something you're into?
I mean, I don't frequently listen to them. I think the music is very good. I think I am a little bit of disadvantage not understanding any of what's going on in the opera. Not speaking
Right,
the
but you've not
language written in.
you're not into them in the sense that you've not looked into the operas and stuff like that.
Not hugely. I know a little bit about them though.
Right. Just out of curiosity, because I think that's definitely I'm definitely a big fan of Mozart, so I've got a bit of background information, which I think definitely kind of makes a difference when you're kind of pre-interested in the figure,
Right.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I like Mozart, but I would not say that I'm I'm constantly listening to Mozart.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, me either, but
Yeah.
I'm a fan of his. Anyway, it's all a digression. What I was talking about earlier, the stuff that we kind of talked about, we left on last week, is kind of the director's cut and the theatrical cut stuff.
Yeah.
I looked into a little bit of it to try and sort it out a bit.
Okay, so what would you say is the biggest difference in the director's cut versus theatrical cut?
The biggest difference, well, I would honestly, there's a few scenes there's more than a few scenes that are cut out in the theatrical version. Because, first of all, the director's cut's 20 minutes longer.
Wow, that's significant.
It's certainly not insignificant.
I think possibly maybe I should have watched the theatrical cut. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Perhaps you would have been there's, for example, the whole scene with the dogs. Remember that scene with the guy with the dogs?
Yeah.
And that whole plot line with Salieri recommending Mozart to this guy, that's not in it. That whole bit.
That's the part they cut out?
That's one of them. That's one of
Okay,
several.
I'm just saying,
Because that bit's
it's
only 2 minutes in total.
Right, yeah.
But it seemed they cut that out, and then they cut out. There's a lot of little things that they cut out, but there's one of the big things is that there are distinctly no boobs in the theatrical cut. That whole scene is cut.
That changes a lot, actually.
It is, exactly. It's actually a really important
you would normally
scene.
expect a lot of nudity in films is superfluous.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It
I mean,
is.
in
It
this
truly is.
specific scene, I think it changes the scene completely.
It does. It changes the whole, and it's not even the nudity that's cut out. It's the whole scene is cut.
Right, it's the whole scene, yeah.
I mean, obviously, it wouldn't make sense if just the nudity was cut. That's kind of as you say. That's kind
Well,
of
yeah, otherwise the scene wouldn't really make any sense.
exactly. And I was reading some people talking about it, who grew up on the theatrical version and then later saw the director's cut, and vice
Yeah.
versa. And there was a lot of discussion about how it doesn't in the theatrical version without that scene. Constanza's fucking
Well, her at
reaction,
the end,
exactly.
Yeah, her reaction to Salieri doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It makes no sense whatsoever. So, I don't know.
Wait, so then is that entire plot line cut out? Like her bringing the music to Salieri?
That I don't know.
Right. Because otherwise, how
Actually-
do they resolve that plot line?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It must have been. That must have been cut as well. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, and also just little stuff, like is just elongated, like certain bits with the preacher and old Salieri, or the priest and the
Right.
old Salieri are like,
Yeah.
extended. And
Yeah,
things
you
like-
could probably change that a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
but, I mean, I'm just thinking like there's a really easy target for cutting.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Yeah, it's like why would you cut other things?
What is your target?
All of the opera.
Ugh. It's such an incorrect take. That's why I ask if you like Mozart's operas, because like it's awesome to watch them, and they're staged so well, and it's
Yeah, but I
part
feel
of
like they're
the-
getting in the way of the story.
But they
between
are the
Mozart and
story.
Salieri.
They are the story. They are Mozart's character. Damn it! Ah. Where was I?
Were they in the stage production?
I don't know. Actually, that's a good question.
Because it would be kind of weird to. Well, I mean, it's been done before, but to have a play within a play, I think logistically that would be more difficult on stage.
That would be more difficult. I imagine they weren't in to the same capacity, but I really
Right.
don't know. To be honest, I have no clue, so I guess I won't really speculate. But yeah, so there's actually one moment that is in the theatrical version that isn't in the director's cut.
Oh, and what happens there?
It's one line.
Yeah.
And it's Salieri right after he burns the crucifix.
Yeah. What does he say?
In the director's cut, it cuts away there. In the theatrical cut, it cuts back to old Salieri, who says, "I will ruin your incarnation."
What? Okay. Interesting.
So I guess he's speaking to Christ. I don't know why that was. I can see why that would
Yeah.
get cut from the director's cut. It's kind of a pointless bit there.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing.
It's just an extra. It's a bit superfluous.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of all the stuff were discussing last week. We can actually get into this week's material.
Yes. Why don't we?
Why don't we
Get on
do
with it.
just
Yes,
that?
get on with it.
I wonder how long that sequence is of that
What?
sound.
Get on with
soundbite.
it?
Yeah.
Well, we should not focus on that. Instead, we should.
Get on with it.
So yeah. So this week we're going to talk about the music, because we discussed that a bit last week, but we didn't go into detail. And then we're going to talk about the production and maybe some other stuff about how
Yeah.
the shots were done.
Yeah. You know what? I think that there could be some more of in this movie. Is Salieri's music actually?
I agree.
I don't think there was enough of it.
Not enough time.
Yeah.
Too many. You gotta have all those. Salieri's music's not important. That's the point.
I would argue Salieri's music's very important.
The idea of it, but actually the hearing it. Maybe it's even a
Right.
good thing though. It kind of adds to the idea.
Well, maybe the problem is that Salieri's music was too good. To
yeah,
be in the
maybe
movie. Yeah.
that, or they just didn't want. The point is that he's supposed to be unknown after the case, so maybe
Right,
they
okay, I
don't
see.
want you to know him, right? They want that to
Right.
kind of stay the case, even in the retelling, so that the viewer has that.
Right. Okay. I see.
That's my idea, but
Mm.
I don't know. I would have, like you said, I actually would have liked to hear more of it just for my own
Yeah,
liking.
curiosity at least.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool.
Though definitely going on a Salieri deep dive after this.
Oh yeah, I was listening to some Salieri
Yeah,
earlier today. It's good stuff. He's a talented composer.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, like at the time, he was like roughly like comparable to Mozart, right?
Yeah, I like the movie does portray. We'll get perhaps more into this later, but the movie definitely like portrays his like status and prestige fairly accurately. Like
Right.
at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, we'll get into more of that later. So anyway, let's talk about the music. Um, the music director and kind of the most important dude involved in the music is a guy named Sir Neville Mariner,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy, I don't think he actually did any other movies because I don't think that was really his thing.
So what was he mostly into?
He was as you can imagine, a classical musician.
Mm-hmm. What did he play?
But I think he played the violin in like several London orchestras.
Okay.
And then after that, he became like he founded and conducted several of his own orchestras, like in the U.S. Like there was one in like Minnesota. I forget what the other one was
Cool.
called. And he's one of the most recorded conductors, is one of the things it said about him, which I had a little bit of a qualm with the wording, at least.
Why? Because you don't record a conductor?
Is it
Because the conductor doesn't make any sound?
Yeah, is he technically recorded if he's conducted? Is he or conducting? Like,
He's playing the orchestra, man.
yeah, I know. But what? I guess right. He's part of it, right? It's not happening without him. So he's, it's.
I mean, I don't know enough about like, what goes on behind the scenes in an orchestra, but I just know people like to make fun of conductors.
I know. I feel like he's more of a producer than a performer.
Well, I mean, I can't really weigh in on that.
I mean, I don't know anything about conducting, but all I know about conducting is from the maestro from Seinfeld.
Right. So not much.
So not much, yeah, exactly.
The maestro was a fan of Salieri, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he is. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, so anyway, they Sir Neville Mariner, they wanted him. I don't know why they wanted him or how they heard of him, but basically they got in contact with him and they caught him while he was at an airport during a layover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they gave him like less than an hour to consider the job. At least that's what he says. I bet he could have been like, "Give me a fucking little bit to think about it." But
Yeah, clearly he accepted it within an hour.
yeah, exactly. He said they
Yeah.
gave him less than an hour. According to Milos Forman, the director, I don't know if we've mentioned him yet today, but
Yes, Milos Forman directed this film.
exactly, yeah. According to him, Mariner agreed to do the film under the condition, quote, "not one note of Mozart be changed," which I guess,
Nice.
which is a good condition, I think, and a very something you'd expect from
Classical purist.
exactly. But yeah, so after they got him on board, they recorded all the music before they did any production.
Right.
And
So I wonder why they decided to record everything themselves, given that it was literally unchanged.
because they needed a lot of different layers that they needed their control over, first of all.
I see.
And
so
then
they wanted to be able to mix it in differently.
exactly, like,
I see.
yeah, like I think they just wanted the utmost
Because I mean, I was
control
just gonna say,
over
because
it.
like surely there's great recordings of all of that music that already existed.
Absolutely. And I mean, to be fair, they maybe could have got like, the masters of other recordings. I don't know how that works exactly, but and then
Well, you
mix
can
those
license
in.
them and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't. I think if they wanted specific like different layers of it, I think that they probably had to do some stuff.
Yeah,
especially.
yeah. And for the tone that they wanted, I'm sure Milos Forman was very
Specific.
specific. Yeah.
Right.
We'll talk about his directing style a little bit more later. It's
Yeah, I've heard some funny stories.
it's distinct. It's
Yeah.
it's distinct. He Sir Neville Mariner also helped write and coach the actors during that final requiem scene.
Oh yeah.
He was
The
heavily
part that I was complaining about.
yeah, he was heavily involved in that scene, and apparently Tom Hulse would intentionally sometimes, like for the purpose of, but then also because there was so much and it was like kind of an improvised scene in some ways,
Yeah.
he would intentionally and not so leave out like pertinent information so that F. Murray Abraham actually was somewhat confused sometimes,
Oh okay.
which as to the reality of the fact, that it might have confused an actual composer, because it didn't
Wow.
actually make sense, even though it was supposed to.
I mean, F. Murray Abraham's not exactly a composer.
No, but the point is,
Although he played one in a film.
It's true, he did. But my point is that it was actually musically, it made sense, confirmed, because it was written. It was heavily involved by
Yeah.
Sir Neville Mariner, but then it was garbled in its actual reading, also
Right.
confirmed. So my point is that could have actually confused an actual composer who would have been listening to it.
Right.
But the point that Tom Hulse was making in an interview was that like it kind of worked because Mozart's supposed to be on his deathbed and not
Delirious.
exactly not the most coherent. Anyway, I just wanted to like try and dunk on you. I don't think it worked, but I just wanted to try. I wanted to try my best to do it. So that's my version of that. We can talk
Okay.
about the production now.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So, as we mentioned last week, they filmed this in Czechoslovakia, in Prague.
And when they entered Prague, apparently Milos told Saul Zantz, he's like, all right, now that we're here, there's no more logic. Forget logic.
Wait, what?
Which I think basically
What does that mean?
I think it's basically his way of being like, don't try to be reasonable, just like, let's just keep your head down and like, do what they tell. I think it's just kind of like, let's not make trouble. Let's not try and be reasonable in the face of non-reason, which I think was his admonishment of the government.
Right, yeah, definitely.
But like we were saying last week, it really was the perfect location for shooting.
Yeah. I mean, specifically, they shot literally in the opera house where Don Giovanni premiered.
Yeah, exactly. That's so sick. Such a absolutely sick detail.
Although I think in the movie they made that happen in Vienna, which is funny.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that's true. I think that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't specify that is the premiere, but I think it's
it
implied
definitely
to
feels
be.
like
It's
yeah,
implied to
yeah.
be. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically the reason that they chose Prague was because, as we said, perfectly, maintained,
Preserved.
basically.
What? Not maintained, preserved. I have a story
Preserved.
about that later.
Okay, sorry, preserved. Preserved, not maintained. Okay. Interesting distinction. So basically, they had nothing to do, really, like to make it ready for shooting.
Yeah, visually it looked correct already. They just
Yeah.
needed basically costumes and everything.
Yeah, exactly. The guy, one of the stage manager guys, I forget exactly what his title was, but he was like, "Yeah, you just had to fucking throw some dirt down and, take down the electric lights, and you were good to go."
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Milos was saying, yeah, you could spin the camera 360 degrees and not have to change anything.
Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, So a detail I forgot to mention last week, um, I think I forgot to mention it, was that Meg Tilly was actually initially cast as Constanza.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and she actually made the trip to Prague with them.
What happened?
This is weird. She apparently tore a ligament playing soccer.
Really?
Which is very fortunate. And like,
Yeah.
they gave her a 5-week recovery time.
But I guess that wasn't enough.
Well, I think. Well, no, the doctor said she would be at least 5 weeks
Oh,
before
right,
she could
yeah,
even
yeah.
be in the film. But because they were already in Prague, and because it was like,
Yeah, they couldn't financially do that.
yeah, exactly, they couldn't halt production for 5 weeks, So
Yeah, so they had to cast at last minute Elizabeth Barrage.
yeah, it really sucked. Like, because apparently they had done tons of rehearsal, and according to Tom
Yeah,
Hulse,
that is terrible. Yeah, that's rough.
it really is so rough. Because according to Tom Hulse, they were kind of like on their high horse. Like, they had done a bunch of rehearsal. They really felt good about what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were in the zone.
Yeah. Well, then props to Elizabeth Barrage, honestly, for coming in there at last second and pulling it off.
Yeah, she did such a good job. Really,
Yeah.
such a good job. And so
Yeah.
the way they cast her is apparently, so it's like, oh fuck, we got to recast this character. They took the Concorde. I'm sure you're familiar with the Concorde.
Yes. A very fast jet.
Yeah, which at one point exploded, so it's not around anymore.
Did it?
Pretty
Anyway,
sure that's
never mind.
pretty sure it exploded.
No, it was just too loud, from what I understand, and fuel inefficient. But
Did
it
it
might have
not?
exploded. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
I feel like I feel like I have to look this up now.
But it was extremely loud and fuel inefficient and
Yeah, it
expensive
was
to
not-
operate.
Yeah, it was not efficient. It was, wasn't.
But anyway, that's beside the point. They took this really fast jet that was really expensive,
yeah,
and like you could get like across the Atlantic Ocean in like an hour or two,
yeah, it was like a couple hours basically.
90 minutes from like New York to Paris or whatever.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't look like it did explode based on what I'm seeing here.
No, yeah, it was just
Accidents
really
and
loud.
incidents.
Oh, maybe. May 19th. Okay, there was a crash.
But anyway, I don't know if that's directly why it was
Somewhat
taken off
irrelevant.
yeah, it's somewhat
But-
irrelevant to the whole situation. Anyway, so they took the Concorde to New York from Prague, and they read 60 women for the part, and apparently it came down to two people. So weird. They flew both of them back to Prague
Yeah.
for a screen test, and then kind of with the assumption it's like, we're gonna do a screen test, then like literally fly you back tomorrow when we figure out which one we want.
Yeah.
But they kept them on the hook for a week. Yeah, like in
Really?
Prague.
What were they doing? Were they shooting scenes with both of them?
No, I think basically they just did like a screen test, and then they were shooting stuff that didn't have that character
Her
in
in
it.
it. Yeah.
And then
Interesting.
they couldn't decide. And then apparently, so Milos, he told Barrage that she had the part.
Yeah.
Because, well, he said they both had the part. He was like, "You're both perfect. I can't decide. You both have the part. You're both perfect. But
But
one of you is too pretty to play Constanza."
Oh, really?
So Barrage got to play Constanza, but Milos is a dickhead.
Like, yeah, kind of rude.
like, fuck off a little bit, but like, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, it was a while ago.
So, do we know who the other actress was?
No, they didn't mention, and in the documentary I was watching, they seem to take special care not to say her name. So
Really? Okay.
I don't know why that is. But ultimately, Milos said that Elizabeth Barrage, as much as he liked Meg Tilly and as good as it was, he said that she was better for the role ultimately, which
Well.
is kind of something he probably has to say. But
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It could be true. He doesn't necessarily.
I mean,
seem-
we'll never know.
Exactly. So, as we were talking about the music, it was recorded beforehand
Hmm.
because they needed it, obviously. The characters playing the piano and the various instruments, like in the scenes, like when Mozart's
Right.
playing,
So,
actually playing, sitting down at a piano and playing it.
did Tom Hulce have to learn how to play it all?
Yes, he did,
That's a tall order.
but so
I
he
assume
didn't actually.
they shot from a direction in which you couldn't see the keys as much as they could, right?
I assume so. Yes,
Yeah.
but so what?
There are
what
scenes
they
where he
did,
can. I said in a lot of the scenes where he has to play the piano, he's drunk.
that is also true. But the point is, he's
Which-
drunk, but
which
also
helps.
amazing at the piano.
Yeah, but I'm saying him being drunk helps like cover over any minor mistakes, right?
Yeah. Well, so he didn't actually have to play the piano. What he did was the piano that they played was not hooked up to anything, so he just fingered the keys, like he played the
Right, and he
keys?
just needed to do it well enough that it matched up.
exactly. So he needed to,
Right.
and they either played the music in the background, or if there was dialogue, they would have like it in their ears, which honestly
Mhm.
sounds so fucking hard to time that all up,
Yeah.
as an actor.
Yeah. Well, as long as it's not like radically off, I think that
Yeah, I
it's
suppose
probably
that's true.
fine. Yeah.
But like even then, it's like the Tom Hulce bits is like
Yeah.
he does some
He
really
definitely
impressive
had to do a lot. Yeah.
stuff. Like apparently he practiced constantly.
Right, yeah.
Milos claims that he never hits a wrong key in the film. I don't know how he could know that.
Wow, I don't know. Maybe he got what's his name to look at it? Neville
I
Mariner.
I suppose he probably did. Like have him look over it and be like,
Yeah.
even in the bit where he plays upside down, he actually had to learn how to, do that.
Right.
It was hilarious
Yeah.
though, because he said or Tom Hulce was saying that I started to believe it, a little bit.
What, that
you
he
know,
was really good?
that I could that because I was hearing myself and watching it happen so much, but then when I would actually sit down and you heard my rendition of it,
Oh, it would be, yeah,
it was
exactly.
really really bad in comparison.
Right.
But still, he learned the fingering. He did
That's
actually learn
something.
to play these pieces from
Right.
So that's something. It's like
He's just
it's
not quite
easy.
Mozart.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a classical pianist, and he did it, while they were, shooting and just beforehand. So,
Right.
but anyway, this is all kind of vague stuff. In terms of actual, boots on the ground in Prague, they did all the old Salieri stuff first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
I guess
think,
they could do that while they were looking for an actress because it only had 2 characters in it.
exactly.
For the most
That's a
part.
good point. That's probably why they did it. Actually, is because
Yeah.
it was just just the two of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the insane asylum.
Yes.
The insane asylum was apparently a war museum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the sense that it had been a hospital during the 30 Years' War.
Oh.
And
Okay.
had been, sort of preserved as a
I'm trying to remember which one was the 30 Years' War.
the big one.
What do you mean?
Oh,
The
it was,
big
it was
one?
very a lot of people were involved, and it was very devastating.
Right.
Is it not the one in Barry Lyndon?
No, that's the 7 Years' War.
Right. Oh yeah, sorry. 30 Years' War is 1618 to 1648. It's Kingdom of Bohemia, Sweden, Savoy, Transylvania, Dutch Republic, Denmark, Norway, Saxony, France, Sweden, Dutch versus the Holy Roman Empire, Spanish Empire.
Oh, so it's not
Denmark,
a war we
Norway.
learned about in school because the British or the Americans or the Canadians are not in it.
Yeah, exactly. They were nearly drawn into it several times, but
Right.
anyway, that's a different story. Yeah, the War Museum. So hospital during the 30 Years' War. Apparently there was it was full of cannons.
Oh, really? I assume they took them out
Yeah,
before
they had to like
make it
and,
look
like-
like a insane asylum.
Yeah, and apparently Milos was like, when they were scouting it out, he was like, this is perfect. And everybody else was like, yeah, it's perfect, except we're going to have to move all these cannons. And Milos was like, oh yeah, we're going to have to move all the cannons. And everybody was like,
But other than that,
everybody else was like, good lord, there's like, there's like 50 cannons here. And Milos, in the interview, he was like, yeah, I guess I didn't really know
yeah, he
how
seemed
much
to
a
be
cannon
living
weighed.
kind of in his own world a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Coincidentally, though, this is hilarious. The upper floors of the museum had been converted into a secret police archive,
Oh, really?
and the secret police were highly suspicious that they had
Of
chosen to
Milo?
film here.
Oh.
Yeah,
I assume they had a file on him.
yeah, probably. Apparently everyone was like grilled after this whole fucking
Really?
after they decided to film here. The secret
It's
police
like,
were
why
very
are
suspicious.
you filming here?
Like, why here?
yeah.
But anyway, I guess they worked it out because they filmed there,
Yeah.
and in doing so, they had to obviously put fucking F. Murray Abraham into the old man makeup, which looked really good.
Yeah, it
think.
looked pretty good to me.
It's like, old man makeup, old person makeup's never amazing. Sometimes it's done better than others, but
Yeah, I mean, I generally
I guess
think
it-
the makeup is better than the CGI shit they use nowadays.
oh, CGI is obviously worse. Like, I think good casting is the best way.
I think
but,
aging CGI is so bad.
yeah, I don't know why they
But
bother doing that.
that's not the point.
Yeah, they didn't have access to such things here, thankfully.
Exactly.
So they did it the old-fashioned way, and it took 4.5 hours to do
Oh,
every
to get
morning.
into the Salieri makeup?
Yeah, which F. Murray Abraham was saying kind of actually helped the performance a little bit.
Help
Because-
them get into character?
Yeah, he's like, well, because you're waking up at 4 in the morning, and then you're sitting having makeup applied for 4.5 hours, and then while you're in the makeup, your movement's a little bit restricted. You just like I felt like I looked in the mirror, I believed it, and I felt
He
like
believed
it.
he was old.
Yeah, so he's like, after that, it was pretty easy.
Nice.
But F. Murray Abraham was also just like, he's very humble about his performance. He was like, he's like, it's beautiful words and beautiful music. I really had very little,
Little to do.
I had to do to make
Right,
it
I see.
good. As you saw in the film, there
I did.
were several snow scenes.
Yes.
And this was actually proved to be a bit of a problem because there was apparently no snow forecast in the long-term weather for that winter.
That's annoying.
Super
What did
annoying.
they do?
So they just basically they moved all the snow scenes to a later date. Specifically, what was the name of that guy from Trek
Oh, yeah.
with the interesting face, who is like
Jeez.
Salieri's like
Let me
footman?
quickly find that.
Because that guy's actually he's got some funny stories. His scene was moved to March. They started, I believe, in the fall,
Mhm.
and they decided they're like, okay, we're gonna move it to March. We're gonna use fake snow. But just
That guy was Vincent Schiavelli.
Vincent Schiavelli. I gotta remember that. And so, because I guess that wasn't the only scene with snow, but they were like, all right, we're going to March. You can do other work until March. We'll call you.
Mhm.
But I think there were other scenes with snow because apparently, according to Milos, they had to prepare 2 sets, very frequently. One in case there was overnight snowfall, and one in case there wasn't.
Oh,
and
and so then if there was snow, they would shoot the snow scene?
exactly.
I see.
So Milos was saying like, so it was a lot of work, but that was not my problem.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I guess I don't know. Does it snow more in Vienna probably than it does in Prague?
I would guess maybe, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how
I'm just
much
wondering if
farther.
that was if maybe they didn't think about that when they were picking locations.
Yeah, maybe they. Yeah, didn't really consider it.
Yeah,
They only considered the architecture.
exactly.
So Vincent Schiavelli,
Yep.
he took other work. He had a TV show booked. So it was a Thursday. He had a show booked for a Monday, but he gets a panicked call from the producer, being like, "It's snowing! It's snowing! You have to fucking you got to come to
You have
Prague
to come
right
shoot."
now." Yeah. So he was like, "All right, we're gonna fly you out to Prague tomorrow, and we'll get you back for your shoot on Monday." So they flew him out on the Friday. They did all the exterior shots on the Saturday, and then they flew him back on Sunday.
Nice.
It's like just in and out, get the snow.
Did they use the Concorde for that one?
I assume they probably must have, because otherwise that would take a long time, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Basically.
Apparently, he was saying that a Czech friend of his, who was like in the U.S., asked him to bring 2 fresh pineapples to his daughter.
Okay.
Which is interesting. But apparently it was a big
request.
odd request. But apparently it was a big deal because like everyone was like shocked about the pineapples. He was telling a story. He was like on set and he was talking to like a guy about how he had brought some pineapple, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, canned pineapple," and the dude was like, "No, fresh."
Oh no, fresh pineapple, yeah.
And the dude was like,
I guess
"What?
it's probably hard
Fresh?"
to come by over there.
Yeah, exactly. Because then he said, then watched this guy go around and tell this story to a bunch of other people, and I saw them all have the same reaction where they would go like, yeah, in a can, and he would go like, no, fresh, and they'd be like, what?
Yeah, I didn't think
It's
about
kind
that.
of funny.
Yeah.
Vincent Schiavelli was like, yeah, so basically I must have had the only 2 fresh pineapples in
all of Czechoslovakia.
in Czechoslovakia. So, as you mentioned, a lot of the theater scenes were done in the same theater where the real life Mozart premiered the actual Don Giovanni opera.
Indeed, where they filmed the Don Giovanni
Yeah,
scene.
it's pretty spectacular, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. I think the way the actors described it, it's sort of inspired a reverence, in them. They were like, they really were everyone was taking it super seriously because, they had this like, feeling of almost spirituality is what F. Murray Abraham described it as.
Mm-hmm.
And also it was like super, bizarre that they had let them shoot there.
Yeah. No, I think I'd probably watch the same thing that you watched about this.
Probably, yeah, exactly, because fucking, as Milos said, because of the damn fucking commies, it was, the place was a fucking fire
Not in the
hazard.
best. Yeah, it was not in the best shape.
Yeah, it was apparently still, like, super, I think, what did he say? It was like you said, it was preserved, not maintained.
That's my wording, not his. But
yeah, that's what you said.
Basically, he was saying like, it was. I think that somebody used the word powder keg.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah, but because basically they had to fill the whole like hall with like candles and shit, right?
Yeah, they
Which
used
were,
actual
like...
candles. Like if you
they used actual
go
candles
back
for the scenes.
Yeah, like if you're like listeners, go back and fucking look at that scene. How many fucking candles are lit in that scene in this?
Yeah, and they were really surprised that like they were actually allowed to do this.
Yeah, which is surprising that they were allowed to do that.
And they had like the fire brigade like on watch, I think, just in case.
Yeah,
but then they were telling the story about when they were doing the first like take of the Don Giovanni bit, right?
Yeah.
Where the guy has like his hat with the plume.
Yeah, exactly. Big, huge white feather plume on his hat.
Yeah, and so as he's acting, and they actually have some footage of this, his hat catches fire, but he doesn't notice. And none of the fire brigade wanted to interrupt the filming of the movie to actually say something.
I find that so funny.
But eventually they did, and they're just like, "Excuse me, I think your actor's on fire."
So funny, like
Yeah, they
like
almost
everyone is,
burned
like,
down the Prague Opera House.
with 40 fucking firefighters on scene just because they're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
they're rolling. I don't want to ruin the take.
Yeah, I think the fire did that.
Yeah, exactly. The fire had already done that. And that, that was because the fucking, in the rehearsal, they had done it, obviously, without the candles lit, because I imagine you want to have the candles lit as little as possible.
Exactly. But they didn't realize that, like, if I'm not careful where my hat is, it's gonna catch fire.
Yeah, exactly. There was, a candelabra on stage.
I hope they had a spare plume or two.
I hope they did, but we'll talk about that a bit more in a bit. But let's take a quick break from the production because I mentioned candles here.
Yeah, okay. So I actually looked into this.
Well, you mentioned candles briefly last week, and I just wanted to ask why that was because we didn't go into it.
Well, okay. So do you want me to play the sound effect?
Let's do it. Play the sound effect. Damn it.
Play the sound effect. Just let's try to talk about how they shot it.
Well, because this relates to Barry Lyndon. We talked about.
Yeah, we did. We talked. Well, we could kind of contrasted this movie with Barry Lyndon a little bit. I think mainly just because of the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But I actually did look into sort of the filming of this movie, and while I was able to actually find quite a lot of good breakdowns about what lenses and everything they used on every shot and shit like that.
Yeah.
I don't actually think that would be that interesting to just go over.
Just go over the list of lenses that they used? Yeah, I guess fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, so, I think this is a very well-shot movie, but I didn't find that many really interesting stories to tell.
Yeah, so basically the question here is, so when did Barry Lyndon come out? That was
1975, I believe.
Right, yeah.
So, basically 10 years before this.
But, do you have any idea how much easier it would have been commercially to shoot in the dark at this point? Because
it
Stanley
was
Kubrick...
easier.
Because Stanley Kubrick involved NASA.
Yes.
As you recall, listeners.
Yes.
If you'll go back and listen to that
couple
episode.
things here.
Yeah.
They used a faster film stock.
Right.
So, on Barry Lyndon, the film was about what you would now say is 100 ISO.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they pushed it in development, so it was probably about 200 ISO practically. Right. But this they filmed with a 250 ISO stock initially, and then they probably pushed it a little bit. But also they cheated. Yeah, they didn't shoot the whole thing by candlelight.
Oh, you mean in Amadeus?
In Amadeus, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just gonna say.
They had candles in the shot, but and I mean, you can tell this just by looking at it. It wasn't actually exclusively candlelight.
Yeah, it wasn't lit just by the candles in the same way it was in Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, in Barry Lyndon, it's very obvious there's nothing else in this scene except a candle.
God, that's a good looking movie.
What, Barry Lyndon?
Yeah.
Or this movie? This movie also looks very good.
They both look amazing. Really, they do both look amazing. I think this movie definitely leans more on its costume and production design than Barry Lyndon does. Obviously Barry Lyndon's is really good.
I mean, what was his name? That had a nervous breakdown while he was doing production design.
That's right. Good stuff. Go listen to that episode if you haven't heard.
Yeah,
it's
episodes.
Sorry, yeah, three-parter.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's shall we move on so this one doesn't become a three-parter?
Yeah, I would say
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
All right.
yeah,
all right.
so getting on with it.
Yeah, you should send that over. Apparently, a lot of the scenes were like actually in the script. Some of the people were saying like in the script they really don't read like much, like so it's all more about how it comes to life.
Yeah, it's the ambiance.
Yeah, which I think is a lot of. I mean, there's so much music. Like, how are you gonna write like Mozart directing or conducting?
Also, it's like, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna write in the script? It's like, and they performed Don Giovanni.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they wrote like stage direction.
Do you think
bit.
they just
I mean, there
took
was...
the libretto from Don Giovanni and just put it in there?
That's a good question. I don't know. Well, we'll have to look at the script.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take a look.
That's how they shot it, right? Yeah, that's if you want, you can look up the camera details if you're interested.
Yeah,
in that,
you can look up the camera details if you want, but they're actually quite detailed. But
see, the information's out there.
The information is out there,
but we don't need to list it.
I don't think that it would be particularly interesting, given how much stuff we're already about to talk about.
All right, well, let's move on then to more production, because there's a lot of interesting stuff that we haven't actually discussed yet. That is a whole interesting dynamic to the film. So let's start it with this one story.
Okay.
They're filming. It's July, 4th of July.
Yes.
They're doing a big opera scene, presumably in that same opera house. And then, out of nowhere, a huge American flag unraveled. And then all the Czech extras in the audience stood up and started singing the American national anthem.
Banner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was like, they did it like as a surprise, for the American crew, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, according to Milos, it was basically like a political statement, which was like...
Yeah, what did the secret police have to say about that? Sorry, cop car.
Apparently, Milos was saying that, so everyone stood up and singing the national anthem, but there was about 30 people, 30 extras that stayed sitting, and they were very confused, and they were looking around at one another.
Yeah.
And according to Milos, she's like, and these were the secret police.
Oh, they weren't in on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So, apparently...
Wait, they just had secret police?
Yeah, apparently,
extras? Because they wanted to spy on them, presumably?
Exactly. Apparently, like, half the crew were secret police, is what they were saying.
That's really funny.
So funny. And everybody knew it. Like, it's like, everybody knew. It's like, yeah, that guy's a secret police, that guy's secret police, like...
So they're not very secret.
No, they were just, the police, basically.
Yeah.
Apparently they were constantly tailed. Their hotel rooms were all bugged, Yeah. All the sort of things you'd imagine.
I find the attitude that the Czechs seem to have at this point to the secret police is really funny.
Oh, what do you mean?
Oh, just that, like, at this point in time, at least, they almost seem like there's something to be made fun of.
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. Bit. So, because their hotel rooms are bugged, F. Murray Abraham told a hilarious story. So it's about him in a hotel room with a guy known only as Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So Frank's really bothered about the bugs, that the room's bugged.
Is Frank American?
Like I believe so.
Okay.
He's hanging out with F. Murray Abraham. He doesn't like that the room's bugged. He's like, I'm gonna find this bug, I'm gonna fucking find it, I'm gonna get rid of it.
Right.
And F. Murray Abraham is just like, forget about it, you're just gonna cause some problems, like, fucking, we've got nothing to hide, there's no reason to just forget about it, like, why bother, like, let them listen, they're wasting their time, but the guy's like, no, I'm gonna fucking find it, so he, like, tears the place apart, and he finally finds underneath the rug, a suspicious metal plate, in the floor.
Right.
So he's like, fucking found it.
I'm gonna get rid of it now.
I'm gonna get rid of it. So he starts to unscrew it with a butter knife, and
Oh,
he
God.
he
What
gets
an
it
idiot.
fully unscrewed. And
Uh-huh.
they hear the chandelier from the room beneath them crash to the floor.
Oh my God.
Uh, so F. Murray Abraham was like, so we went to dinner like a shot.
Nice.
So they just both.
Did they have to pay for that?
I don't think so. I think he just like maybe the production did.
Maybe
but,
they just pretended it was like, oh, it fell on its own.
yeah,
You know, old creaky hotel.
yeah. Just get rid of the evidence and be on your way.
Yeah.
I know nothing about that. Um, but yeah, F. Murray Abraham had some interesting things to say about the production, about his kind of role in the production, because he said he sort of isolated himself from the rest of the cast and not necessarily the crew, but the rest of the cast.
Is that for like a acting reason or?
I think it was a combination of it started off as like he actually just had other things lined up, and then it kind of
Right.
he kind of realized that like it kind of worked for the role. So he was like, I'm a party guy, I like to go out and party, but I kind of stayed away, because I kind of wanted this sense of like I didn't want to
Isolation?
exactly because I don't want to be familiar with the rest of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they were saying like yeah his relationship with Tom Hulse was like it wasn't like they were civil obviously, but they were like almost icy, like not quite,
Really?
but like almost like icy.
Yeah, maybe it was like to get into the role.
I think it
'Cause
was.
what we were saying about Jeff Goldblum in The Fly was
That's-
being like really mean to that guy.
Yeah, to the guy who's playing what is it, Strathis?
Stathis Borans.
Yeah, whatever the guy's whose name I can never remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He was like, yeah, way too into the whole
Yeah.
love triangle thing off screen. They had to kick him off the set.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe actors just like take it too far sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like he took it too far. That he took it too far here, which is good. It just seems
Yeah.
like they were into it, and it actually helped them in their performances.
In their role.
They both seemed
Yeah.
to say, especially in that final scene when they were like kind of improvising with one another. They really seemed to think it was an interesting way to culminate that bit.
Yeah.
After having been, kind of isolated. So, kind of last few things in the production here. Milos Forman's directing a little bit, and how it's, he's a bit. He's proven already he's a bit of a dick. Like,
Yeah.
he was a dick
so
to
Vincent
Elizabeth.
Chiavelli, I think he was saying he could be abrupt, but he was never wrong.
So, I mean, he's a good director, but he was a bit of a dick, it seems like.
Yeah. Seems that's often the case.
Yeah, with these good directors. He was saying, like, the less you say, the better. You don't want to give, because apparently...
He thinks that Milos Forman thinks that the less he says,
Exactly.
is better.
Exactly. It's like, if they're giving good performances, like, I don't want to, like... There's no point in telling them that, was kind of his philosophy, almost. It was like, just let them do their work, and if they do something that I need them to change,
Right.
I'll tell them,
Well, that's funny because, like, I think some of the things he said seemed a bit cryptic to some of the actors.
Yeah, totally. Do you have an
'Cause
example?
what-
But yeah.
Sorry?
What were you going to say?
Well, yeah, Vincent Chiavelli was saying that during his scene, he, like, he was literally just walking down, like, the street in Prague.
Yeah, for the snow scene that they flew
For
him
the
in
snow
for.
scene, and then he was he got the comment. It's like, Vincent, TV is ruining you, or something like that.
You're ruining your walk.
Yeah, and so then he said he did it again a couple minutes later, and then he said it was amazing or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's on the
And he
next
said, I don't
take.
know what changed.
Yeah, on the very next take, he's like, yeah, I just
Yeah.
did it again, and then he loved it, and I don't know what I did differently, but there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, directors are cryptic and
Sometimes, yeah.
and yeah, sometimes. But yeah, he said his philosophy was as a director was generally just get people better than me, for every job.
Right.
Because
Yes.
he's like, a director does a little bit of everything, but
Mhm.
for every other job, get someone who can do it better than I can. Is kind of
Yeah.
what his philosophy was, which is an excellent philosophy for
Yeah, that seems to work out.
that role. But apparently these people, those better people, were very stressed about doing a good job.
Oh yeah.
Especially in Prague, because apparently it was very difficult to source materials, especially
Oh.
for production
Like
and
things
costume
like
design.
pineapple.
Exactly. But costume design and production design was apparently
Well, I mean, it's not a big like production center.
exactly. They had to, I imagine, do a lot of importing from a lot of various
Like
sources.
this is why people still film things in like Los Angeles or New York or whatever, even though it's more expensive.
Right.
It's just because it's really easy to get shit.
Exactly. There's just shit for filming everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, the apparently wigs were one thing that were very hard to come by. And
Really?
goodness me, there were
I
a
guess
lot of wigs
they
in
were
this
out
movie.
of style in communist Czechoslovakia.
Say that
They
again.
were too bourgeois.
Say that again.
I said they were out of style in communist Czechoslovakia. They were too bourgeois.
They must have been. They must have been. Yeah. Apparently, the costume designer, I loved his attitude in his interview. He was like, the way I looked at this job was I did everything as the best possible way, and I refused to compromise. If something wasn't good enough, I would not let it go on screen. I would refuse to compromise with the producer, no matter what he said. So it's like this guy's just like, I'm just gonna do my best work and fuck you. Like,
Right.
I'm not.
Nice.
So I don't know how he managed to pull that off.
I don't know
but-
how you managed to. I guess because Milos probably was okay with that.
Yeah. Well, the guy was not speaking English in his interview, so I don't actually know what language he was speaking because it was being
Right.
overdubbed. But
Was he Czech by any chance?
that's what I assumed, but I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Because there was a large Czech component to the crew.
Exactly, and a lot of them were secret police apparently.
Really? I assume not the crew, mostly like the extras.
Yeah.
It's like, because I feel like most secret police aren't like, qualified to operate a camera or something like that.
The cameraman was the first AC is actually secret police.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, okay. So overall, everything that the final note on this production is that everyone on this film, who was interviewed about it, basically says that everyone else worked really hard. So it's and put their all into
it was
it.
a huge production. Like it required everybody to basically be on their game.
Exactly. It was a huge production. Everyone had to put a lot of work into it to pull it off. And they did it quite well, and they made an excellent movie. But you know what the movie was not?
What?
Truthful.
Oh yeah. You want to talk about truth? Is that
Fuck
what you
yeah.
want to talk about?
Oh yeah.
All right, tell us what the truth
Fucking history
or the
nerd.
lack thereof.
So,
Are you
history
gonna be a
nerds-
truth sayer or lie slayer?
Yeah, I'm gonna slay some lies right now, and fucking this movie.
Slay the lies.
This movie's a fucking liar, man.
Yeah, this movie is a huge lie.
This movie's all a lie, man. It's fiction.
There are some true things.
There's actually quite a few true things, but also there's quite a few fucking lies in this movie. So
Yes.
originally, what I was gonna do here is I was actually just gonna go through the real story of Mozart, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of stuff that's not in the movie or is whatever, not as important to the movie
Hmm.
because it's not really a movie about his life per se. It's about his relationship.
Him and Salieri.
Exactly. So I've done, a bunch of research into Mozart and also, into Salieri, but mostly
Yeah.
just in his
Well, I
relation to
feel like
Mozart.
Salieri is almost the more interesting thing in this case because it's like, I feel like most people don't know that much about Salieri outside of this film.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And you know, neither do
Whereas
I
at least
outside of.
Mozart is like a household name, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't, they were saying that this movie did give Mozart a huge bump. Like obviously we were saying it gave Salieri a huge bump, but
Yeah.
it did
Well,
actually give
Mozart was starting from a higher spot, is my
exactly,
point, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, basically I've just done a bunch of research. So just fucking why don't you just ask me some questions about accuracies because there's a lot of stuff. So like, do you have any questions
Okay.
off the top of your head?
How did Mozart die?
How did Mozart die? It's unclear.
So just like it is in the movie.
Exactly, and it will never become more clear. It's kind of
Yeah, I assume the evidence regarding that is long gone.
yeah, but it's presumably there's obviously I think hundreds of theories have been put forward.
Mm-hmm.
But his symptoms were like he had like a cough, he had sort of a fever, but he also had what's it called, rheumatic fever.
Mm-hmm.
He had that kind of recurring throughout his life. So a lot of people also suggest it could have been a renal failure.
Okay.
So again, it's no one knows really. The ultimate question is no one knows.
You mean the
Um,
ultimate answer?
yeah, sorry. Ultimate answer is that no one knows,
Yeah.
which is a question really of itself.
I guess so.
But yeah,
okay.
I meant
So
to say
we
it.
don't know how Mozart died, just like we don't
No.
know in the film.
Yep.
Okay. Did Salieri actually hate Mozart? From what I understand, from all we know, is that no, he didn't.
Exactly. From all accounts point to no, he did not hate him. They maybe had sort of a professional rivalry, but that's as far as it could have gone. Like, there's no
Right.
evidence to suggest.
But there's no evidence to suggest that there was even like a particular association between the two.
Well, they did know each other.
Right.
And they did interact. And in fact, Salieri was one of the people who attended Mozart's funeral
Oh, okay.
in actuality.
Which I don't think they showed that in.
They did.
They
He's
don't
one of the
show him.
guys
Oh, in the film. Yeah. Okay. I was trying
in the
to remember.
film. Yeah, he's standing among the. But apparently, in the movie, they show Constanza there, but she didn't in reality attend. The funeral
Really?
because she was, too grief stricken.
I see.
Or maybe she murdered him.
Maybe. Who knows? Is that your own speculation?
No, I just made that up, and it really doesn't add up. It doesn't really make sense. Like, why would she do that?
I don't know.
Well, I'll think about it. But yeah. What was the question I was answering?
You know
Oh
who
yeah.
killed Mozart, right?
Who?
J.J. Abrams, obviously.
Murder.
That's a deep cut Cranker commentary reference.
That is a deep cut, but it's a good one. It's good reference.
Yeah.
So interestingly, there is vague credence to the idea that Salieri murdered Mozart, or that he claims to have murdered Mozart, rather.
So I know that Salieri may have lost it a bit near the end, right?
He did lose it a bit, and he did attempt suicide through by cutting his throat.
Uh-huh. And did he survive?
He did survive. And now there is some extreme hearsay that claims that they heard him say that he poisoned Mozart.
He did in the film.
Exactly, in his delirium.
So there is some account by some unverified person.
There's an account of an account, and this account of the account has never been found. So it's highly unlikely that it actually happened, but there is some vague hearsay that somebody heard somebody say that the priest who was attending to Salieri heard him say that.
But he killed Mozart.
But it's
but
never
in the film
been...
he actually didn't.
In the film he actually didn't. Yeah.
He was trying to.
Yeah, he wanted to.
But he didn't.
But no, he did not.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the Salieri connection.
Was Mozart actually an alcoholic?
That's debated. He was definitely debaucherous in some capacities. I mean, whether or not you consider he had several mistresses, that's debaucherous. I don't know if you consider that debaucherous, but
I would consider that fairly debaucherous. Yes.
Yeah. There was also some speculation because he did write some letters. He wrote a lot of letters, which is why there's a lot known about him in certain capacities. He did write letters begging for money from his friends, which kind of confused historians, apparently, some historians, because he should have had... Why?
Because they think that he should have had some cash.
Yeah, they think... Exactly. So there's some speculation that he had some sort of vice problems that may have...
Gambling and or alcohol and or, you know...
Exactly. But the specifics are unclear, and that's all, again, kind of speculation.
Did he ever ask Salieri for money?
That is known of.
Okay.
His letter was not to Salieri.
Okay.
I forget I forget who it was specifically. It was a friend of his, but it was not Salieri.
Did he actually write Don Giovanni, or not Don Giovanni, but did he actually insert that character in Don Giovanni because it was supposed to represent his father?
That is unclear. There's speculation about it, but he did write it shortly after the death of his father. So there is, again, there's speculation that, you know, the themes do line up with where he was in his life at the time in some capacities. But
okay, I got a very good one for you here.
But that could be reaching. All right, you got a good one?
What did Mozart's laugh sound like? Okay. Do we have any evidence for that?
Yeah, you just played it.
No, but is there like some letter or something that somebody wrote being like, and this guy has a weird ass laugh?
No, I didn't come across, and in fact, it seems that he certainly had a penchant for scatological humor. He wrote that in a lot of letters, and he did have like he wrote like a tiny little minuet called like "Lick My Ass" or something like that. But he was one of the documentaries I was watching about him purported that he was not as childish in, like, you know, he was a little bit more sophisticated and like articulate in his you know, day to day. And I think this was someone who had,
where the idea for the laugh came from in this film?
I think it was because they really wanted to portray him as childish and like
immature,
you know, unhinged. So I think Tom Hulse is where it came from. I think he probably is, you know, is part of his playing with the character. Maybe it was directed, but you know, that's just my speculation.
Okay, trying to think. Is there anything else that I can remember?
A detail that I thought was super interesting was that he was requisitioned by like some stranger to write the Requiem, and so under some mysterious circumstances, and he did apparently like start to like kind of go crazy over it a little bit. Like in letters, he was starting to like, you know, associate it with himself because he was starting to talk about death towards like the end of his life. He was like, I feel like I'm dying almost. Like he kind of knew it.
Right. Well, yeah, he was.
Exactly. So
from what we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. From what we don't know.
Yeah.
But one of the documentaries I was saying was saying apparently this was actually a requiem some like aristocrat had was paying him to do it, and the reason it was anonymous was because he wanted to take credit for
Well,
it.
that would
which is what Salieri wanted to do
in the film, not in reality.
in the film.
Yes.
But yeah,
Do not want to besmirch Salieri's good name.
no,
in
exactly,
reality.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently this guy was writing it for his wife, and he wanted to take credit for it, so that's why he was being cagey about it.
Secret.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have any other questions about the
I'm
truth?
trying to think. I think that's like the things that stood out to me is mostly just that the entire like crux of the plot is entirely made up.
Yeah, the entire crux of the Salieri-Mozart relationship is false. Entirely
Yes.
false.
Yes.
And if anything, they were maybe respectful of each other and as contemporaries.
Yeah.
You know? So there's that.
So it's more of like a Mozart fan fiction.
It really is. It really is a
Yeah.
Mozart fan fiction. Because it was written by Pushkin.
Yeah.
The original story we were talking about last week, and that was actually apparently I was reading it was written only 25 years after Salieri died.
Really?
Which is puts it kind of into an interesting perspective if you think about it like that.
Yeah.
Because it does make it seem a little bit more like fan fiction, doesn't it?
It does. Oh yeah, another thing that so Salieri was saying that when he was older that nobody remembered his music, right?
Yeah.
I was more under the impression that people didn't forget about Salieri until a little bit later.
That actually is a good question.
And I was also thinking that I think it was almost more of a the thing that was more unique was that we still remember Mozart's music.
Exactly. 100%.
Rather than the fact that we forgot about Salieri.
100%. I think that's in reality the more unique thing.
Because if you think about it, most composers that were around, most people don't know about them.
Yeah, exactly. Most composers,
I bet you, if you asked any person off the street to name 3 composers, they probably wouldn't be able to do much more than 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. And most of them
would probably be one of them would be Mozart.
One of them would certainly be Mozart.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, who the fuck are you, honestly?
Yeah, I mean the other 2 are probably Beethoven and Bach, but
yeah, it's Mozart, Beethoven, and blank basically, and name your poison. But yeah, probably Bach. So that's basically the truth. Unless you can think of anything else.
No, I think that's all I got. But
yeah, there were some. I mean, there's more things minor details that they changed. I think during the course of this film, the emperor would have died in reality and been replaced with another one.
Or the staging of Don Giovanni would have been in Prague.
Or exactly, or Vienna, or in Prague. Sorry, yeah. What am I talking about?
Which it actually was. I'm
getting it all mixed up.
But in the film, it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. What else? And there's characters are omitted. At the end of his life, Mozart had a student who was the one who actually finished the Requiem, whose name I forget.
It wasn't Salieri.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Shocker. But
yeah.
As lending, to your point earlier, I forgot the name of his student even.
Exactly.
I mean, that's basically it. And Mozart encountered Beethoven at one point. It would have been funny if they put that in, but obviously that would have been.
Oh yeah, that would have. Yeah, I believe that one of them studied with the other one. I think
Beethoven's much younger.
The younger one, yeah.
Yeah, so he as a kid he went and played for Mozart or something and
exactly.
Mozart told everybody, he was you better watch out for this kid.
Yeah, this kid's gonna be something someday.
Yeah, exactly. This is gonna be somebody.
Yeah.
Which is funny, but yeah, that's the truth. So before we close off this episode, do you have any final thoughts about this amazing film?
I mean, I think my final thoughts are pretty much unchanged. Although I think maybe if I watch the theatrical version, I think I might potentially prefer it. I'm not sure. Maybe
just because it doesn't run quite so long.
Yeah, well, I just my problem is not with the running time, because I like several movies that are very long.
Yeah, no, it's.
My problem is that
I know what you're
the extra footage doesn't contribute to the story.
And you're 100% incorrect about that, and we can fight about it. But yeah, that's a fair point or a fair opinion. I respect your right to hold that incorrect opinion.
This opinion which I definitely hold.
Huh?
I will retain my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, sick movie. I love this movie. I'm gonna watch
probably
it again
worth
soon.
a watch if you have the time.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I will concede maybe to you is that I feel like maybe they could have given more time to Mozart's illness.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes out of nowhere, except the fact that it just kind of seems like that's the point in the movie where you have to wrap it up.
Well, I would disagree that it comes out of nowhere, because I think you can, like, visually, he's clearly declining throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, that's true.
But they don't in the
script
ever actually address that. Oh, hey Mozart, you're not looking so good. And he's like, no, I'm not feeling good. Like, he's just all of a sudden he collapses because it comes to a head, which I'll concede that. But other than that, fight me.
I will.
All right.
All right.
Well, that's
our
that's this
episode
movie
for this week.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in again.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, one more time.
Thanks to our Italian listeners for giving us another listen.
No way, Italians tuned in for. Did they tune in for the first episode of Mozart?
I believe it was that. Yes.
That's awesome. Mozart did not like the Italians, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. Well, they wanted to hear about Salieri, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Well, I'm sorry, Italian listeners. I like you more than Mozart does.
Yes. So with that, I suppose we'll see you next week.
Yep.